Hi, guys. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Welcome, everyone. Carrie, Kinship Kind, Paul, generally, Zach. Zach, oh my gosh, it's a miracle. Zach didn't think he'd be able to make it, but he's here. Can you guys hear me? I'm using a new microphone today. I just want to make sure that it's working. Hello, hello, hello. Going to paste my welcome message into the chat. And I can't pin it because this is the issue I always have. The emoji reaction button is in the way. Hey, Tamara. I'm assuming you guys can hear me. Okay, Paul says yes. Hey, Chantal. Oh my gosh, everybody's here. All right, I'm going to pin my message. Excited to be here with you guys. Hey, Rats Pickles Music. Cool shirt. Yes, I've worn this in another live stream. This is just one of my faves. It's technically Paul's shirt. Greetings from NorCal, Zach, Netherlands, generally, love it. So for generally and Carrie, it must be God knows what time. 8 p.m. I feel like it's like the middle of the night in Australia. I'm going to drink one of these today. Dr. D's. Have you guys tried this? It's a Concord grape sparkling probiotic drink. I think Concord grape is one of my favorite flavors. Also, I'm obviously in a different setup today. Thought I'd try something different. This is my first time live streaming on my channel in my office. This is where I usually do the live streams with Sky. Okay, generally, I'm going to have to do some math now. Carry the one. So it's 21 minus 8. I'm still trying to figure it out. Yeah, 832. Nope, that's not right. 932. Okay. Have you tried the peanut flavor? You're joking. There's a peanut flavor of this? That can't be real. But yeah, this is basically just a sparkling probiotic drink. Delicious. It has sugar added to it, which I'm not a huge fan of because it doesn't really need it. Like grape is sweet. So it's a little more sweet than I would prefer, but I've seen so many pizzas and nacho cheese Doritos since your dairy in movies video, right? Anyone remember Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs? Oh, I had forgotten about that. / maybe have never seen Spaceballs. But I've heard that character name before. Doritos especially, like the old school Doritos packaging. Like I can see it in my head. It's like a white packaging with the old Doritos kind of font and logo. How's everyone doing? I'm feeling a little bit like maybe ever so slightly allergenic today. I don't normally get spring allergies, but I'm just like, my nose is kind of itching, feeling it a little bit. But thankfully, I think it's just allergies. All right, guys. So we're going to get into some controversial topics today. Who's thumbsing down? Sorry, I guess I have some allergies. I don't know what to tell you. I've actually seen that happen before on other lives, YouTube lives, and it seems like it happens automatically. Like it doesn't seem like someone did that. I think it just it responds to me somehow. I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to turn it off. Very funny though that happens. Hey, Vegan Stallion. Hey, Joseph. I think it was you. Yeah. Like, because I went, like, what did I do? I touched my nose. I don't know. We'll have to keep our eye on that. Keep us on our toes here. All right. I wanted to go over a couple things before we get into it. Firstly, for those who don't know, I think a lot of you do know, but I launched Patreon last week, which is very exciting. We did our first Discord chat last weekend, and we do those every week for all Patreon levels. So everyone from the lowest level up gets to join, and it was really fun. If you don't know what Discord is, it's basically like an AOL Instant Messenger chat room. And so we're going to be doing it every week. This week, we're doing it this Saturday, but normally we do them on Sundays. But we're doing it on Saturday this week to account for Mother's Day. Already have some exclusive bonus content up there for the dinner fork and up tier. So yeah, if you just go to my channel, like open it in a new tab so you don't lose this, the link is right there on the main part of my channel. So yeah, that's just getting started and it's very exciting. And I appreciate everyone's support who's joined us on there, and just wanted to make a quick announcement for anyone who wasn't aware. And I'm going to be adding a new perk soon for all levels. I just haven't quite figured it out yet, but I'll be adding that soon and it will be available to all levels. Broccoli, howdy. What a username. I guess we've all heard enough about the cheese competition. Well, I covered that pretty thoroughly in Good Vegan News. I think that was the longest Good Vegan News segment I've ever done, but it deserved all the time, I think. And yeah, but we've got some good topics today, guys. We've got some good ones. Natalie, hi from Ottawa, Canada. Hi, Natalie. Welcome. I tried Discord, but it was confusing. Probably no problem for the young folks. I had the exact same issue. I was like, how am I going to launch this when I don't even know how to use Discord? It's pretty simple once you get over kind of like the initial hurdle of getting used to the interface, I guess. But I did put on Patreon, I put like a how-to of just like how to set up your Discord, how to connect it to Patreon, and then you'll just automatically be added to the Forkable server. So pretty simple. And yeah, once we got started, it was just, I sent a few weird gifts that I didn't mean to send. After that, it was smooth sailing. All right, guys. So shall we get into the controversial topics? I need to clarify. This isn't controversial vegan topics. It's vegan controversies, which is a little different because this is like actual controversies that are happening, that have happened in the last few weeks, I would say, versus controversial vegan topics, which are like a whole different thing. But yeah, so I also need to say this, that a legal disclaimer, anything that I will be saying or discussing, everything is alleged and based on publicly available information or things that I saw on the internet. I am not claiming any of these things are 100% true, but I feel the need to make that disclaimer because you will see why. There are certain topics that I feel need that disclaimer. So I might be throwing in a few allegedlys and supposedlys and qualifying words like that because of reasons that will become clear when we get into them. But yeah, basically, I do my searching every week for vegan topics and things, especially for Good Vegan News. And on the vegan news tab of Google, there's some good news stories. Obviously, we got some good ones together last week, but there were a lot of controversies. There were a lot of controversial topics. There were a lot of controversial things that I came across on Google and on Instagram. And so I was like, I felt like they all needed to be discussed. And I also wanted to do another live stream. So this seemed like the perfect opportunity to get into all of them. And I think that's everything I wanted to say before we get started. Oh yeah, also the theme of all these controversies are sort of all in line with like vegan business owners, specifically restaurateurs. So there's a lot, there's a theme today, and it's vegan business owners and or vegan restaurant owners. There's a PC game I play that has household items in it, and the milk is called Real Milk with a cow picture on it. As soon as I saw it, I wanted to send you a picture. Haha, what game is that? That is sus. I'd say that's a little sus. Okay. I'm also going to pin the topic that we're talking about to the top of the chat. So if anyone joins late or joins in the middle of a topic, they'll know what we're talking about. So first topic. Let's pin it. Okay. I just realized something about the issue I was having with pinning messages. All right. So that's pinned. Okay. So I touched on this a few weeks ago when I went live with Sky. So you guys might be like somewhat familiar with this topic, but this is Miyoko Shinner versus the Vegan Women's Summit, which is actually happening literally today. The Vegan Women's Summit is today and tomorrow. I always want to call it the Vegan Women's Summit, but I realized it's Vegan Women Summit. Okay, so this is a topic where we're going to be saying a lot of allegedlys and a lot of seeminglys because, well, I'll get into why. Okay, so there's this thing called the Vegan Women's Summit, if you haven't heard of it. And it is a convention, I guess, that happens every year. It hasn't been going on for that long. I think it maybe started in 2018, 2019. And it's meant to be this kind of female empowerment summit with speakers and food, and it's supposed to be a place where you can like get together with other women and network, and it's empowering and all this stuff. I'll be honest, I never had an interest in going. I just always I had a few friends ask me in the past, like, "Hey, are you gonna go to this? This sounds really cool." And I was like, "I'm not gonna pay to go to that." Like, I don't know. It just something about it maybe felt a little bit inauthentic, or like I said this to Sky, maybe a little bit like girl boss feminism, like this sort of corporatized capitalistic version of feminism. I mean, someone's like, it would be a great place for you to go and like network for your channel. And I was like, maybe, but I don't really think so. Like, I don't know. Something about it just never appealed to me. But for people who, Chantal said it is super obnoxious. For people who it appeals to, great. I'm so glad that it's there for you and you can go to it. But it is very expensive, and we're going to be getting into that. So it was started by this woman named Jenny Stokovich, I believe is how you say her name. And I don't know a ton about her. I did a little research, and she is a venture capitalist. And she's around my age. She's like in her mid 30s, if not younger. And she has a background in venture capital, I guess. And then she's currently a venture capitalist. So it seems like she has a lot of money, allegedly. And and she started this Vegan Women Summit. And she is someone who has had a lot of controversy around her in the past, or at least some controversy around her in the past. And so the reason that I'm being very careful with this topic is that she seems to be someone who is extremely, extremely defensive and protective over her public image and the public perception of her. She's very much a public figure. Like, she's very much out there as the figurehead of the Vegan Women's Summit. And so she seems to be very protective over her image, fiercely defensive of it, and also is someone who constantly seems to be pissing people off. So it's this very strange dichotomy of like kind of constantly seeming to be stepping in it, and then like really upset when people are upset with things that she has done in the past, allegedly. So last year, someone I follow on Instagram had made this post about her. It was like this, I don't know, I don't even remember what he said, but it was like not good about her and something she did. And I honestly don't even remember. It's honestly not even really that important. But this person, Jenny, not Miyoko, there was this post about her and all these people were commenting like negative things about her and about the Vegan Women's Summit. And then like she commented and was like, this is untrue and like all this stuff. And the person who had made the original post was like commenting back and being like, Jenny, this and that, whatever. And so that's how she first got on my radar. I was like, geez, oh my God, this woman seems to have, a lot of people who maybe aren't the biggest fan of hers. Then a few weeks ago, Miyoko posted on her Instagram a post that was like a swipe through of a few screenshots of tweets. And I wish I could tell you exactly what they were, read the tweets to you, read the caption, but I can't. You'll find out why in a minute. But it was again about this person, Jenny, and things she had allegedly tweeted or tweets she had allegedly responded to that were loosely, broadly about the Israeli-Palestine conflict. And people were very upset about some of the sentiments that Jenny seemed to have or seemed to be sharing. And Miyoko, who has become very outspoken on her platform in the last year, I think, especially since stepping down from Miyoko's, I think, is using her platform in a different way and is not afraid to speak out about things. And also there have been, mounting controversies in the last year, and she speaks her mind on them, which is something that I really admire about her. So she made this post to say, I want to completely distance myself from this woman, Jenny, and the Vegan Women's Summit because Miyoko was a speaker. I don't know if she was like a keynote speaker, but obviously she was probably, a main speaker of the Vegan Women's Summit last year. So she was sort of associated with them because of that. And she, a picture of her was being used on the website to help promote the Vegan Women's Summit this year. So she wanted to come out and say, I'm not associated with them. I do not support them. And I do not support the founder and the things that she has said. And then there were a ton of comments being like, I agree, and all this kind of stuff, like this, saying negative things about this person, Jenny, saying negative things about the Vegan Women's Summit, just like a barrage of negativity of like, kind of like when it's like someone says something and then everyone's like, finally, we can just let it all out. That's kind of how it felt. And through reading the comments, I learned that allegedly, the Vegan Women's Summit, even though it is a for-profit event where the tickets are extremely expensive, I don't know the exact price, but I think the general admission tickets were somewhere between $350 to $400 for one day, and the VIP tickets were like closer to $1,000. So this is a for-profit event, and allegedly, according to Miyoko and other speakers, they don't pay the speakers. And allegedly, they don't provide travel and accommodation for the speakers. So if you get asked to speak at this event, not only not getting paid, but also having to foot the bill for your own travel and accommodation, which it's historically been in New York City. This year it's in LA. I think it was in LA last year too, maybe. But anyway, it could be really expensive for someone to fly out and do all this just to speak for free. And I'm sure it's positioned to them as like, oh, but this is such a great opportunity to promote your business or to, promote your speaking or whatever it is that you're trying to promote. I'm sure it gets, framed that way to the potential speaker. So Miyoko said that they did provide her travel and put her up in a hotel for one night because she said she wouldn't come without that. So they did do that for Miyoko, apparently. Paul says he's obsessed with Miyoko's scallion cream cheese. Tamara, even without Miyoko's disapproval, the middle school dramedy stuff is reason enough to avoid this summit. But when you add the appearance of fleecing participants, lordy, whoo, totally agree. Zach said, I looked up general admission 349, almost 350. Yeah, but then I wonder, like, are there taxes and fees? Does it come out to more than that? It just seems very expensive. Like, that's almost the price for a Coachella weekend ticket. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like, I don't know, Lana Del Rey or like Vegan Women's Summit. Again, it's just not something that appeals to me. For people who want to go, who go and who enjoy it, great. Sorry, I was just clicking around. I'll stop if you guys could hear that clicking. Anyway, so also someone that I know in person, like someone that I've met before, commented on Miyoko's post and said that they had volunteered at the Vegan Women's Summit before and said they treat their volunteers terribly. And Jenny was a nightmare and was like yelling at people, like treating people like shit, yelling at people. And it was a horrible experience and I'd never do it again. Again, all allegedly. So that post was up. Miyoko's post was up for maybe a day, maybe two, and then she took it down. So, what I would imagine maybe happened with that is that uh, someone got in touch with Miyoko and possibly threatened legal action because when you are someone who has a lot of money and who also is like extremely defensive of your public image, that seems like a thing that you might do when another, a even bigger public figure than you kind of makes this post that has now become this, forum for people to share their negative experiences. So that post got removed. And I feel like Miyoko is someone who really stands by what she says. Like she says things and she puts it out there and she stands by it. So that's why I think something big must have happened to make her encourage her to take it down. I have no vegan friends, so I'd be tempted, but not for the price. And Zach said, yes, also $5 fee. Okay, so that's not like horrendous. It's not like Ticketmaster fees. But yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment of like the idea of coming together with vegan women and supporting each other and hypothetically lifting each other up and learning from each other. That sounds great, but there's something that doesn't quite sit right about you know but you have to be rich essentially, right? And they have these things that they're like, well, we do a scholarship program and for students, but it's still like a few $100s. Like it's a little bit of a discount, but not much. So then I was on LinkedIn and I follow Miyoko on LinkedIn. She's very active on LinkedIn. It's something I mentioned in my interview with her. But since I follow her in my feed, I will see when she comments on something. So I saw she had commented on this post and I looked at the post. I read the post and it was from this woman named Michelle Simon, who is a lawyer and is also someone who was on the Miyoko's board at some point. Miyoko appointed her to the board at some point, and I don't know if she's still on the board. But this is what she posted. This woman, Michelle Simon. Why is Beyond Meat CEO Ethan Brown keynoting the Vegan Women Summit? I mean, seriously, WTF. Over the weekend, the Vegan Women Summit announced it just scheduled, less than a week out, a keynote chat with Beyond Meat founder and CEO Ethan Brown. There is so much to say about the absurdity of this, it's hard to know where to begin. Starting with the obvious question. You couldn't find, a woman? Moreover, Brown is hardly a champion of women industry leaders. Let's take a look at the corporate leadership, shall we? One of the 7 executives Beyond Meat lists on its corporate of the 7 executives Beyond Meat lists on its corporate governance page, only one is a woman. Let's discuss equity and pay. Public companies are required to report the ratio of the CEO's compensation to that of the median employee as a measure of how equitably the company is paying its staff. Let's just say at Beyond Meat, not very. The ratio was an incredible 100 to 1 in 2022. While Brown's base salary is 500,000 and his overall annual compensation is 6.7 million, the median salary for all other employees is 67,668. So that's how you get 100 to 1. While it's true that worse ratios are standard in corporate America, let's go back to where we started. Ethan Brown is being put on stage by the Vegan Women's Summit to discuss empowering the next generation of industry leaders. Will they be discussing these inequities at Beyond? I'm guessing not. And let's not forget that Beyond Meat has not exactly been performing well. More layoffs are predicted for this year. It seems that white male leaders of the vegan food industry fail up, while women founders of successful brands get the boot. So perhaps it's understandable that the Vegan Women's Summit selected a failing male CEO. Most of the successful women leaders are long gone, but somehow I doubt that will be a topic of conversation at the event. Make it make sense. Damn, Michelle. Mic drop. So, Miyoko then commented, and this is what she said: "This article/post is so on point. I guess some women feel we need men to inspire us. I think if I were to put on such a conference, I'd only have women-led brands and women speakers. Men could join in the audience, but I'd want to share the successes and struggles, both of women as we navigate this world. Also, as a woman, I don't want to succeed following the same paradigm has been set by men. I want to recreate it." So that is an overview of this whole situation. I do think it's a little weird, actually very weird, to have Ethan Brown as the keynote speaker. Like, why? Like, what? Like, it's also like Beyond is like, hasn't been doing great, isn't really that like publicly perceived very well. Were they struggling to get someone else? I mean, it was just announced last weekend, and the event is today and tomorrow. So it's the whole thing is just, it's kind of icky. And I also, it disturbs me, this kind of suppression of information and like the suppressing of people talking about it, and this this system that we have here in the US in particular, where if you have enough money, you can just shut anyone up with a legal threat because you can bury them in legal fees, essentially. So, yeah, the whole thing is just really icky. I'm glad that Miyoko spoke up about it. I'm sad that she, for whatever reason, felt she had to take her post down. And that is a summary of that controversy. But I hope that everyone at the Vegan Women's Summit is having a great time and has a great time, and you know, and that it's worth your ticket. Appalled by the traditional pay scale, to say nothing of traditional exact compensation at Beyond Meat, I really expected better. Exactly. It just makes it seem like, unfortunately, Beyond's like, we're doing things differently, and like we're forging a new path. But it's like, are you? Like, or I don't know. Or is this just all about money? So very icky all around. Something else that's very icky, right into the next one. So this is one of the big stories of the roundup of controversies, is like, hang on, actually, let me get the link. Let me paste the link for you guys. Here we go. All right. Sage Plant Based Bistro in Los Angeles beginning to serve meat, dairy, and eggs. So I want to kind of put this into context for people who aren't familiar with this restaurant or with the Los Angeles vegan scene at all, because maybe it would feel like, well, why is this really relevant? Because, I don't live there and I don't know that restaurant. I think it's safe to say, in the US, Los Angeles and New York are the epicenters of vegan cuisine. And therefore, the restaurants there, the vegan restaurants there are some of the best vegan restaurants in the country, some of the best vegan restaurants in the world, and also some of the most well-known vegan restaurants in the country. And also, I think a lot of times the vegan scenes in New York and LA set the tone for other vegan restaurants and vegan trends. And there's lots of influential vegans in Los Angeles, etc. So Sage was this restaurant in Los Angeles, a vegan restaurant that opened in 2011. I would have thought it was around for longer, but the original location was in Echo Park of Los Angeles, which in 2011 would have been like, not maybe a great neighborhood, and now is like so fucking expensive that like I would it used to be like the place where you'd live because it was cheap, and now it's extremely gentrified. Probably, partially thanks to places like Sage having a presence there. Lo Ra, hey, welcome. So um so Sage was this really popular vegan restaurant, and I mentioned this, or this is how I put it in the voice notes podcast episode that I did for Patreon. And if any of you are familiar with Los Angeles or the vegan scene there, let me know if you agree with this. But what I said was that if there were a Mount Rushmore of LA vegan restaurants, Sage would be one of the heads. Like, it was one of the vegan restaurants of LA. And they were so successful that they ended up opening multiple locations. I don't even know how many or where all of them were, but they did have multiple locations. They also had this like ice cream shop within the restaurant. And the restaurant location in Echo Park was this beautiful location, like really high ceilings, beautiful brick interior, kind of these floor to ceiling windows, just very charming and just a really nice place. I used to go there. I mean, I went there a bunch when I lived there. Traylin, I hope I say that right. Just discovered this channel, love it. Thank you so much. Welcome to the live stream. Turning Veganese says the problem with plant-based companies and restaurants is that they're not really vegan. Yeah, so that's something we'll talk about with this story. So, all right. So that's just a little backstory on Sage. What happened was on Earth Day, which was April 21st, I think that's when Earth Day is, Chef Molly, who is the chef and owner of Sage, posted a reel on the Sage Instagram, whose Instagram handle is The Kind Sage. And she made this announcement. And it was basically this long, rambling reel, as these things often are, where it's just these like long, rambling, nonsensical announcement where she basically says she has had this realization about how regenerative farming is the answer to all of our environmental concerns, and she thought it was veganism, but now she realizes it's regenerative farming and that that's the only sustainable way forward, and therefore we are going to start serving regenerative protein at Sage. So this phrase, regenerative protein, really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I even had a former non-vegan coworker reach out to me and be like, I'm not even vegan, but they're calling the animals regenerative protein is really icky. Like, that really rubs me the wrong way. And it's true, especially coming from a supposed vegan, longtime vegan chef and business owner, and talking about a longtime vegan restaurant. We're going to start serving regenerative protein, like not even, just totally humane washing it. Rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Degenerative, yeah. Regenerative, though. So and then she also announced that they would be changing the name to Sage Regenerative Kitchen and Brewery, from Sage Plant Based Bistro. And let's see, I already linked the LA Times article. So there's been tons and tons of articles about this topic. Like, when I would search the vegan news, like, it was just tons. This story has really blown up. And Unfortunately, it's just one of those headlines that catches on like wildfire, like, "Whoa, like popular vegan restaurant in LA goes, stops being vegan." Like I feel like it's one thing for smaller vegan restaurants and maybe a town or smaller city um, to make this change. But for this, institution to do it was pretty shocking. Translation, I don't have as many customers as I'd hope, so now I'm switching to animal slavery. Yes, turning veganese, you keep making the exact points that I have. So yeah, really good point. Um, so this is from the LA Times article. And that's the thing, turning veganese. I was like, is this really about the environment and regenerative protein, or is this about money? Because if it's about money, that's one thing, right? And, like, say that in the announcement. Be like, "Yeah, we've been struggling. We've had to make this really hard decision. We've been struggling." That would still, suck, but it would be at least it would feel a little more authentic and honest. Produce, not pills. Hey, regenerative sounds like such a buzzword. Like, tell us what you really mean. Exactly. It has become you know, this sort of catch-all buzzword. So this is what she said in an interview with the LA Times. Uh, well, this is what the LA Times article said. Following a vegan diet, the chef owner said, is no longer enough to combat climate change. So the new iteration of Sage will focus on sourcing and proselytizing regenerative farming practices. She says, I understand their passion and I understand their sadness and I understand their anger. I had the same views of the world that they did before I shifted my ideas. Why can't I read this? Based on my experience in farming, and I have compassion for what they're feeling. I hope that the vegan community and the regenerative community can really come together because I think they're both powerful, powerful pathways for change. It's vulnerable to publicly say, I believed one thing and maybe I was wrong and now I believe something else, she continued. But I hope that it inspires people in their own lives to be willing to be open minded when something else makes more sense to you. So, all of the reasons given, like I said in her announcement, were about the environment. But in the time since then, Molly has talked a lot about the financial toll the pandemic took on her restaurants and how they never recovered. So it's like, okay, well, is that the reason then? Like, is that the reason? Um, there have been other vegan restaurants that have incorporated animal products for financial and business reasons. Like I said, it would be a little more authentic for her to just say that instead of trying to shroud things in this cloak of nobility. Like, no, 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 I'm saving. You don't understand. I'm saving the planet. Regenerative farming. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, it's clearly about money. Produce, not pills. She sounds so dishonest in her video too, so disingenuous, it's cringy. Exactly. I picked up on that immediately. Compassion for vegans, she's forgetting someone. So sad, so true. So also I was thinking about this and it's like, I don't know. I know that this seems to be like a bit of a trajectory that can happen for vegan restaurants, but the whole thing of like adding animal products for business reasons, it kind of like doesn't really make sense to me, or it doesn't seem like it should make sense. Like, aren't there already enough restaurants that do that? Like, being a vegan restaurant, you're doing something different and unique. And then you're adding animal products and therefore you're conforming to be like other restaurants. So wouldn't that mean that you would now have more competition? Like, sure, you might get this like staunch anti-vegan crowd that's like, yeah, now we want to support you because you said fuck the vegans or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Like, vegan restaurants are special and unique because they cater to a certain demographic. And I guess maybe that demographic isn't big enough to financially uh support them during difficult times. But also, another thing I want to say, I used to work at a vegan restaurant in LA in the next neighborhood over from Sage. So similar clientele, I would say. Similar, like the people in the area of where the restaurant I worked in was were the same type of people that would go to places like Sage. And at the vegan restaurant I worked at, it was, I remember the owner telling me, and I noticed this too, that a majority of patrons were not vegan. And maybe that's just because it's Los Angeles and people are a little more open-minded, and like vegan cuisine is just a type of cuisine they incorporate into their weekly rotation. But uh, you know, it's not just vegans that go to vegan restaurants is the point, especially if the food is really good, something different that they can't get elsewhere. And so making the mistake of being like, oh, it's just vegans and they're like, that's just very narrow-minded, in my opinion. By the way, that Shaka Gray vegan restaurant that Trump spoke of, it's not even vegan, it's animal abuse, but you can swap for plant-based. Wouldn't that just be so Trump would be like, something has like one vegan option and he'd be like, "It's vegan." Like, haven't or sorry, "It's vegan." Haven't you guys ever, had this experience where someone will be like, "Oh my god, this vegan place opened down the street from me," or "There's this like fully vegan store down the street from me," and then you go and you're like, "There's literally meat on the shelves. Like, what are you talking about?" And there's like a couple vegan items, and so someone's like, "Oh, it's a vegan store," and you're like, "No, it's not." So, unfortunately, not very surprising that Trump's vegan restaurant wasn't even vegan. Um, so okay, so at Sage, a lot of the popular vegan items will still be on the menu, but of course, they'll also have animal products added. This is also from the LA Times article. Engelhart contemplated the decision for 18 months before pulling the trigger. I guess that my back had to be really against the wall to be brave enough to do it because I'm so brave. Because I knew the vitriol that would come my way, she said, my restaurants have been really struggling, like so many restaurants post pandemic. And she also said they haven't been profitable since 2020. While Engelhart said the decision is partially a financial one, the larger factor is promoting regenerative farming and more ecologically sustainable practices. Okay, so here she's acknowledging, like, yeah, the financial is part of it. To me, it feels like the financial is the primary reason. And then again, like I said, using that regenerative farming as this like shield of like to soften the blow or something. Um, she also said that her brother is really into regenerative farming and started a regenerative farming nonprofit that Molly is on the board of. So Molly did a lot of farming. Like they had a farm where they grew a lot of their food for Sage. And it seemed like there were animals there, like, it was kind of like an animal sanctuary, and then she maybe had I don't know if she had another farm, but we'll get into her farms in a minute. But I have to say, I don't know a ton about regenerative farming. Like, it seems like this I don't know about you guys, but to me, it kind of feels like this term kind of, like, came out of note. Like, all of a sudden, everyone's talking about regenerative farming, and it's kinda being used as this, like ending veganism argument, like, oh, like, well, regenerative farming, like monocrop, like these terms that y- it's used as if like, oh, you can't argue with this one. And so I did a little bit of research on regenerative farming. Um, Oh, well, first I wanna mention there were a couple comments on the post on Sage's reel, one from Fully Raw Christina and one from Chantal, which Chantal, I'm not sure if you're still here, but Chantal is Live Lean Health on Instagram. We follow each other, and she is great, but they both talked about how Fully Raw Christina and Chantal talked about how they run their own regenerative farms that are completely vegan and that it is possible to have a vegan regenerative farm. Um, Chantal's regenerative farm is called Eco Dharma Village. It's in northern Portugal. So shout out. Hey, Chantal, you're still here. Good. Okay. So follow Eco Dharma Village on Instagram if you want to support her and support a vegan regenerative farm. It's Eco Dharma, Dharma Village. So Chantal, maybe you can speak to this more. But I did find this Veg News article about regenerative farming. Of course, it's Veg News, so it's going to be, biased toward veganism. But regenerative farming is mostly about soil health because the soil has been degraded and depleted by harmful agricultural practices, which affects the nutrient quality of food. It's a big issue. But here's what the Veg News article said. Around the world, soil is being degraded and depleted by agriculture, particularly animal agriculture. In fact, in the US, industrialized livestock is responsible for around 85% of all soil erosion. So while many people seem to just blame vegan food and veganism for the issue, factory farming is the biggest contributor. So basically, large-scale animal agriculture. And it's also no surprise that indigenous communities practiced regenerative farming. They obviously had a huge respect for the land that was completely lost by large-scale corporatized farming. And so it's not a new concept. It's just something that we've sort of gone away from. And a lot of proponents of regenerative farming have claimed that grass-fed beef is carbon neutral because its healthy soil is storing more carbon than its cows emit in their lifetime. But that said, critics are keen to point out that any low-carbon steaks are still likely to have produced far more emissions than plant-based products. Beef is an industry notorious for potent methane emissions, and so it's arguably never going to be better for the planet to pick up a hamburger over a block of tofu. In 2022, the Environmental Working Group called the idea of low-carbon beef nonsensical as the idea of low-cancer cigarettes. So can one of you link, please? Oh, to Chantal's farm. Wesley, not to mention the amount of plant ag devoted to animal feed. Exactly. Chantal says regular agriculture is about healing the soil so that a different variety of plants can live together and cohabit to give the soil the nutrients it needs. The only way animals are involved is that it got cut off. But yeah, so there is an argument that regenerative farming, or a lot of people seem to think regenerative farming and animal ag go hand in hand. Yes, we have to have animals, we have to raise them and kill them in order to properly regenerative farm. But it seems like the main components of regenerative farming are minimizing the disturbance of soil, keeping soil covered, increasing crop diversity, keeping living roots in soil, none of which require animals. There is an argument that animal grazing has positive benefits for increasing soil health, but also why couldn't that be done with rescue cows, for example? Why does it have to involve a repetitive system of breeding and killing? Let's see what Chantal said. Chickens may be pecking or sheep eating grass or cows or using cows and horse poo. Yeah. Nobody has to kill anything. That's kind of what it seems like to me. Can't the animals be there but not be exploited? Yeah, but all this is utilitarian calculations. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, turning veganese, but so yeah, I guess that's just sort of an overview of how regenerative farming is, misused as an argument against veganism. The next phase of the story takes place the other day when I go on Instagram. preparing for this live stream to look at Sage's Instagram account, the stats about the soil and the carbon emissions and all that. So I'm looking at Sage's Instagram and wait, hang on. I just want to catch up on the comments before we move on. Tamara, of course, the animals can't just be there because they are commodities, right? That's the problem. They're not seen as beings with their own value. That's true. So, right. And also they require some money. I get, they eat a lot, but if they're grazing on the grass though, aren't we isn't that taken care of, for the most part? So I go on Sage's Instagram and I see that Molly has done a live stream with what's her name? Yovana from formerly Ravana. So Molly and Yovana go live together and I was like, this is going to be good. To be completely honest, I kind of missed the whole Ravana no longer vegan drama. She was for those who don't know, she was a big YouTuber who was a raw vegan, I believe, and then was caught on camera eating fish or something. And then was no longer vegan. And, I want to say that was kind of the beginning of the no longer vegan YouTuber avalanche, but it happened right before I started Totally Forkable. So I wasn't really up on or involved in sort of vegan YouTuber drama. I'm going to just have a quick snack before I get into this. I got these lupini beans from the store. In the past, I have loved Brahmi beans. I've talked about them on my channel before. But I have heard you can just buy lupini beans. And so I bought some, but I have to say they're not nearly as good as Brahmi beans, but they're a lot cheaper. This was $2 or something. Beans. A new little snack, guys. Where did they dredge these people up for their solidarity needs? I mean, Ravana, honestly, you guys should, if you want to be frustrated and infuriated, you should watch that after you watch this. They work really well if you just add a few into a salad or something. I believe that. I just eating them straight. No, they're good, but the Brahmi ones, they have different flavors that are really good. But yeah, I feel like these would be good in a salad. Anyway, okay. Lupini beans have a hard coating. I love the texture. I guess it's removed. Oh. Yeah, they have this kind of outer shell part. Fork adds a nice touch. All right. I have a couple other snacks that I might dig into at some point, but I need my energy to talk about this next part. Okay, so if we guess the exact number of beans in the jar, do we win a prize? Yeah, but you'd have to count them, Paul, you'd be the one to count them to verify the winner. Okay. Molly goes live with Yovana. She opens the interview by saying, Molly says that her brother thought Yovana would be the perfect person to come on and have this convo. Why? Who knows? And Yovana says, I know your brother. It's been so cool to see his transition. It's so cool. I'm guessing the transition is that he's no longer vegan. So she says, it's been so cool to see his transition, yours, mine, and honestly, so many other of us out there. So this to me was confirmation that Molly's no longer vegan, because there had been this other video that had been done and someone commented and the person was like, oh no, Molly's still vegan. I was like, really? not sure if I believe that, but this was, confirmation that she's not. What was that? A jar of pickled garlic? They are lupini beans. So they're these really delicious beans that I don't know, they don't really have a bean-like texture. They're really good and they're high in protein. They're really healthy. They're delicious. This company Brahmi makes them in like bags and they're flavored. They're really good, but they're like, maybe like $5 or $6 for a bag. You can get these in a regular grocery store. You can get those like huge jars. I don't know if you guys have seen those huge jars, but anyway, they're good. And going with refried pintos and hot sauce here. Nice. I switched to lupin protein powder. I didn't know that existed. It is superior environmentally because it is drought resistant and is a nitrogen fixing plant that enriches poor soils. Look at that. Speaking of regenerative farming, we are right on the mark here with my snack selection. Tamara said, I always heard that Molly person was a vegetarian. Interesting. I mean, it seems like that was the case, but okay, let's get back to it. Molly then says the average length someone is, it's like, where the fuck did this even come from? But she says, yeah, I mean, the average length someone is going to eat a fully plant-based diet is 2.5 years. And so I'm like, where does that statistic come from? I don't know. Molly talks about having a farm. So this is, I suppose, the farm that they were using to grow the vegetables for Sage. She said that they had a couple animals there. And then she's like, they needed like something for the compost or something. And so she's like, so I got a cow from my dad. And then the cow had a baby. And all of a sudden, like, I've got this cow who's nursing and I'm buying Tetra packs of oat milk and I'm milking the cow into the gutter because she was producing more milk than her baby could eat. And she was like basically pining about like, what a waste, like what a shame how wasteful that was. Like, I'm buying Tetra packs of oat milk and then I'm milking the cow into the gutter. And I'm kind of like, well, I suppose you could have donated the milk, right? If you didn't want it to completely go to waste, I suppose you could have donated it. She also said she was breastfeeding at the time. And she said, it's like if I'm in a Tetra packs of oat milk and then like my breast milk. And if my breast milk is gold, is this raw cow's milk gold too? Which is like, I'm not really sure the connection there. Like, yes, that is gold to the baby cow. Okay. That I don't know. It was just a very strange, like, mental sequence of connections that she seemed to be making. Hey, Carrie, are you just joining us? Jarred beans, that's cool. Ew, we don't sell extra human milk. Right, exactly. Hi again, Carrie. Donate for other cow babies, I guess. Yeah, like I'm like if you thought it was such a shame to be wasting the milk, then like there's things you probably could have done with it so it wouldn't go to waste. Tamara, why did the cow have a calf? Why was the cow overproducing milk? Her calf weaned and mom was still producing milk for months. It's unclear. What I took from this is that her family is somewhat involved in animal ag. You know what I mean? She's like, I got a cow from my dad. Like, why did her dad just have like an extra cow to give her? Like, unless he is involved in, raising cows in some way. Weird. Sounds like a fabrication on her part. Yeah. So it continues. She's like, so she's talking about how this farm, it kind of just evolved into animal ag. Like it kind of just happened, She says there was one cow and then there was more. There were a few ducks and then there were more. And the male ducks were killing the female ducks. And I'm like, oh my God, we have this problem of these like magically multiplying ducks. And I'm just kind of like, if you didn't want the ducks to reproduce, I'm pretty sure there were things that you could have done to prevent that from happening. You know what I mean? Like animal sanctuaries manage to have animals that don't reproduce. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it just was like, everyone just keeps reproducing and we didn't know what to do. So then Giovanna says, learning and evolving is the way the world works. And so for diet, it should always be evolving too. um, okay, yeah, I do think learning and evolving is the way the world works. But then it's like, okay, so your diet is just constantly evolving. So you've gone from vegan to not to like fish to like meat. And then like, are you gonna like eventually evolve back to vegan? Is it like, you know what I mean? There's only so much that our diets can change. And also morally and ethically, eventually you land on something where you're like, okay, this is no, this is where I stand. This is good. Um, Also, Molly is kind of all over the place. Like she keeps bouncing around from health. Like Giovanna says, a lot of vegans are afraid to change their diets if they're struggling with health issues. Um, like they're afraid to change their diets even though they're struggling. And I don't think that's great. And then Molly's like, I know, I was afraid too. Like this or that location of Sage weren't doing well financially and we were having to close. So I was afraid too. I'm like, well, she's talking about health and you're talking about financial. And so it's just all over the place. And I just kind of had this realization. I want to say this in a nice way. I'm not trying to be mean, but just like people say with celebrities that being rich and famous doesn't equal intelligence or authority necessarily on certain topics. I have kind of had this realization that being a business owner doesn't necessarily mean you're intelligent. Like I think it can mean that. It can mean that you're, very talented, very hardworking, very driven, like lack certain fears that might hold other people back. But listening to these two people talk, I was like, this isn't necessarily I don't really feel like I'm listening to two like very connected, understanding of what they're talking about people. And there was just kind of like someone said about the original reel where she made this announcement, there's just kind of this like vacancy in her face where I'm just like, I don't even think she believes what she's saying. And so like I'm sure as shit not buying what she's selling. Um, all right, I'll catch up on chat quickly. Wait, what, Tamara? Wait a minute. Her parents are the Gracias Madre or the Cafe Gratitude people? Okay, this is wild. You're blowing my mind because what thought about mentioning, but decided probably I didn't need to. The Cafe Gratitude is another restaurant that would like arguably be on the Mount Rushmore of LA vegan restaurants. Um, sorry if you could hear that insanely loud truck that just went by, but Cafe Gratitude, there's all kinds of weird shit with Cafe Gratitude, who also has Gracias Madre. Um, all kinds of weird shit with them. But one of the scandals was that the owners started like a farm and started killing animals and selling beef and stuff. I did not realize that Molly of Sage was their daughter. Mind blown. And it makes everything make so much sense. So Molly is essentially an LA restaurant Nepo baby. Wow. Okay. This is all making a lot of sense. Um, maybe it will evolve back. Exactly. De-evolving. Ravana means de-evolving. I agree. Next human meat. 50 watching, but only 30 likes. That's okay, guys. Like when you remember to. Uh, okay, I forgot to like, just did. LOL. Thank you. What do you think about cryptocurrency? Not my area of expertise, alpha. Um, one of those, I didn't know that either. I went to a restaurant yesterday and the waitress was trying to make me feel bad for not eating animals. She couldn't believe how I was still alive. Oh, bless her. Um, she learned something. You showed her a miracle, essentially. You showed her like a Jesus walking on water level miracle. Okay. My brain is like reeling from that revelation that Molly's parents are the cafe. Oh my God. Holy shit. I don't know. It just like, I don't know. Not to take away from a woman business owner's success, but that does put things a little bit in a different light. Like starting a successful vegan restaurant when your parents have a successful vegan empire is a little different from just like starting one up out of nothing. Like the restaurant I worked at was a woman business owner. She started it out of nothing. Anyway, restaurants are for people who can't cook. I mean, look, that I do not agree with that. I think restaurants are for anyone who wants to have a nice meal, try something different, can afford to go out, um, and are lucky enough to have a restaurant with good vegan options there. Mary, I'll double check this, but I'm pretty sure one of the articles about this mentioned the family association. No, I saw something too of like I saw something too of someone mentioned something about her dad or her parents, like, someone mentioned something about Cafe Gratitude in one of the comments, and I was like, I don't know. So it's so weird, like, she's on the same trajectory of her parents then, gosh. Um, um, Alpha, it seems like you're just trolling at this point, so I'm going to ignore your comments. Um, okay, so Molly then in this live stream with Giovanna, she then talks about pesticides and she's like, I want my son to be able to be fertile in the future. She says, we've lost 50% of male sperm count in the last 25 years. I have no idea where that statistic came from. I can't say for sure that it is not true or true. I just don't know where the fuck that statistic came from. But Molly seems to believe we've lost 50% of male sperm count in the last 25 years, and that that's largely due to pesticide use and soil erosion. She acknowledges that people say you can do regenerative farming without having animals involved, but she says you can't do any kind of farming without animal involvement, period. Giovanna says animals will die either way. It's very difficult to be a perfect vegan. Okay, so my opinion on this is animals dying incidentally as a result of farming processes is not great and it's not ideal and it's not something that we should strive for. Unfortunately, it is something that happens. But let's not pretend that's the same thing as animals dying incidentally as a result of farming processes, plus animals being raised specifically to be slaughtered, plus the incidental animal deaths that are caused by growing the food to feed those other animals. Um, I just feel like if you're going to be mad and upset about crop deaths, you have to acknowledge that crop deaths are compounded by animal agriculture along with, of course, purposeful animal death. Um, okay, well, chat went crazy. I'm vegan, not a troll. Okay, Alex Jones has entered Molly's chat. Is that real? Was she on Alex Jones? Oh boy, can't wait to watch that. She is uh, she is measuring it. Pearl Jam. I'm still alive. Playing in my head now. That's awesome. That could be our anthem. I'm still alive. Um, let's see. Uh, doing field research, nav, veganic farming. Alpha is a vegan. Okay. Um, it's true or widely accepted by the scientific community. This is that the sperm count thing that you're talking about, Carrie? Maybe there are a lot of carnists impersonating vegans now. The loss of sperm thing sounds like Alex Jones. Okay. Again, guys, I didn't fact check it. She said it and I'm repeating it. So there were a couple comments on this live stream that I wanted to mention that I thought were great. One was by bunnydad.aj. And he said, okay, so this is a quote that Molly said in the live stream. She said, vegans are threatened by regenerative farming. So this guy quoted that and then said, a claim that's funny for several reasons. There exist vegans who practice regenerative farming without breeding and killing animals, like Chantal, like apparently Fully Raw Christina. 2, you yourself have acknowledged that it is possible to do number 1. 3, even your own documentary, Kiss the Ground, which I have watched, actually says nothing like the absurd claims that you're making. In fact, the documentary explicitly discusses a, quote, plant-rich diet as not just one, but one of many ways that help greatly with soil restoration. And even when regenerative agriculture is discussed as one of those ways, involving cows is only one of 4 complementary elements to it. Stop lying and deceiving out of your ass already. As you told the LA Times, this decision is purely a financial one. Stop trying to make it seem like breeding and killing animals is somehow inherently better for the planet. Someone else commented, Joe OQT. It's always good to ignore. It's always okay. Sorry, let me start that again. It's always good to ignore the victims and focus on only yourself when making decisions. So brave and courageous, inspirational. And I think that really sums it up. I think this whole story made me realize, like, with vegan restaurants, we just assume that the people behind them are vegan. And I think for a lot of smaller businesses, a lot of smaller vegan restaurants, that is the case. But I realized that it, very often could not be. And there's just this ickiness of someone making a ton of money off of vegans and off of, appealing to vegans, off of, eschewing vegan values and principles. And then once they've made all that money, being like, yeah, now I'm going to come out and like tell you who I really am. And yeah, it's just something to think about who we're supporting when we support vegan restaurants. I'm just thinking of the vegan restaurants in Connecticut. I pretty much know all the owners. They're all vegan, very passionate about animal welfare, animal rights. But you just never know. Even someone like Molly, she was sort of like cosplaying as a vegan for years, even though she wasn't. And I guess like you don't have to be vegan to provide vegan food for people. But I think what people thought they were supporting when they went to eat at Sage was different from what they actually were supporting. Priscilla, I've never been to an all vegan restaurant. I think for profit, they have to serve both, which sucks, but there aren't enough vegans for a restaurant to make it successfully. I guess it depends where you live. I'm wondering if there's a way to support more veganic farms and businesses that use produce/grains from veganic farms. It would be great to have some type of resource. Maybe that does exist. I love supporting vegan businesses. Vegans who support these restaurants are the idiots. Vegans' job is to lower animal rights violations, not eat a fancy dessert for yourself. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I do not think vegans who go to vegan restaurants are idiots. Depends on the market. The pandemic was awful for the restaurant world. A very popular and profitable vegan restaurant where I am closed because they didn't get COVID-19 PPP loans to help. Pandemic was just devastating for the restaurant industry, for sure. All vegan restaurants are great. I hope you get to go to one day. I do too. I guess I'm an idiot. I guess most of us are idiots. But anyway, so that is that for that story. It's a behemoth of a topic, lot to cover, a lot of like ickiness. I just couldn't believe when I saw that Giovanna had been, or Giovanna, whatever the fuck her name is, Giovanna, I think, had been invited to, join in the conversation. I think that kind of told us all we needed to know. Like there's this like elite community of LA ex-vegans, or I don't even think they live in LA, but you know what I mean? Of like famous ex-vegans, and they're like, we'll welcome you into the fold. Very interesting. Is that a Stanley Cup? Actually, it's not. Get your eyesight checked, Alpha. It's a Yeti. You can be vegan and a troll on a live stream. Absolutely, Alpha. I mean, you can keep trolling if you want to, but it's not really gonna. You're not gonna get the response that you're hoping for, I guess. Your internet of vegan company Alpha. All right. Anyways, let's move on to a quick little palate cleanser of a story. This is something I talked about on a live stream a couple of months ago. The donut story, the donut controversy. Just a little small update and barely anything. Wait, hang on. Let me paste it for anyone wondering. We're moving on. Got some new people joining. I think maybe people are kind of getting off work, able to join. Happy to see it. A breaking update on the vegan donut story. A Long Island bakery is voluntarily recalling some of its products after being accused of passing off Dunkin' Donuts as homemade gluten-free treats. The Savory Fig is working alongside the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets and is voluntarily recalling their manufactured baked items out of an abundance of caution due to a possible undeclared wheat gluten, soy, and/or milk allergens that may appear in their baked products, the bakery said in a statement on April 24th. So that whole drama about the place that was selling vegan and gluten-free donuts that actually turned out to apparently seemingly be Dunkin' Donuts. They have the investigation with the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets. Investigation is moving forward. They are cooperating. Why wouldn't they? And they are recalling the donuts. Damn, I forgot about Donut Gate. Oh well, a simpler time for us all. Donuts are too costly. You know what's funny is that the donuts were, I don't know. I had the stat. I wish I had said it on the last stream. They were selling them for like $76 for 12 or something. And at Dunkin' Donuts, you can get 12 for something like $14. So quite a profit they were turning there. The donuts thing was crazy because wasn't she a vegan supposedly? Again, yes. Again, very confusing. Like I talked about it on the stream a few months ago, but she apparently was vegan, and like I mentioned this, but I went to her Twitter and she was like reposting things from PETA. Like she seemed to be very passionate, like an actually like animal rights advocate activist. And so to think she'd be feeding fellow vegans and misleading fellow vegans something that wasn't vegan is kind of shocking. I haven't found a vegan donut yet since I went vegan. How do you recall a donut? That is a really good question and a really good point. I don't know. I guess if you happen to still have one hanging around your fridge from months ago, send it back. That was the thing. Like whenever something like this happens with food safety, I feel like the company who had the violation will always be like, throw it away, throw the product away. Like that happened with Daily Harvest. We're like, if you have any, throw it away. And then people are like, don't throw it away. Do not throw it away. You need to hang on to it so that they can be tested, but they want you to like get rid of the evidence, I'm gonna move on to my next snack. Spudsy sweet potato poppers, jalapeno ranch flavor. I went through a real Spudsy phase in like 2022. Some of you might remember that when I discovered Spudsy sweet potato puffs and I was obsessed with them. I think I've only tried these once before. They're not like great. They're not great, but I thought they'd be a fun little snack for the live stream. They're in this kind of 3D Dorito shape. Vegan donuts are 25 cents by me. The old-fashioned kind, where is that? I cannot afford any donut, calorically speaking. um, one donut costs $10. Um, accidentally vegan donuts. That's surprising. I've never seen a donut be accidentally vegan. What happened to Daily Harvest? I have a whole video about it. But it was, they had this some type of contaminated product seemingly. I actually don't think it ever got resolved or people ever got answers, but it was causing people to get insanely sick. And to the point of having some of them having to have their gallbladders removed and have like no idea what was happening. And it was very fucked up and very scary. I made a video discussing the whole situation a few years back. It's a few years ago. But if you just search like totally forkable Daily Harvest, I also have some Daily Harvest reviews that I've done in the past, but you'll know which video it is when it comes up. Mm-hmm. I love 3D snack. Tamara, you still can't get Spudsy there? Not even in Whole Foods? I feel like Whole Foods across the board, the Whole Foods I've seen have had Spudsy, but they only have like a couple flavors. I watched your video, but have a bad memory. Oh my God, so you've seen it. Honestly, I do too. I think that something happened and people had their gallbladders removed or something. That was like almost 2 years ago now. None of the Tim Hortons donuts in Canada are vegan. None of the Dunkin' Donuts ones are too, either. Accidentally vegan honey buns. Oh my gosh, we have a fellow Connecticut vegan, Trevor. Neil's. Yes, I've heard of Neil's. Neil's in Wallingford and Middletown has a bunch of vegan donuts, which I think are probably accidentally vegan. I have heard people talk about Neil's a lot. I've never been. Oh, there's two kinds of donuts. There's cake donuts and there's brioche donuts. I prefer cake donuts, but I feel like most people prefer brioche donuts. Some Daily Harvest stuff showed up at our local discount grocery store. I ate some and survived. Yeah, I mean, they haven't had any issues since, but the fact that they never got to the bottom of what the issue was, or at least publicly, it was a little alarming. I will check again at Whole Food. Hopefully they have it, Tamara. Hopefully you can try them. They're good. They're not like great. The cheesy ones kind of taste like Cheetos. They're pretty good. Too fattening for me, so it's for the best. I thought Dunkin' Donuts had vegan donuts. Not last time I checked. How about a cronut? Never had one. There's no definition of veganism that will please everyone or that doesn't contain, sorry guys, bumped my desk, some liabilities. Practicable comes to mind. Totally agree with that. All right. Paul likes drum roll donuts, which he recently discovered and loves. I think Dunkin' had a Beyond Sausage thing. They did, and then they took it away for some reason. Weird, in Germany, they have them labeled as vegan at least. Dunkin' Donuts? Yeah, no vegan donuts at Dunkin'. All right, guys, let's move on to the next story. Our next controversy is the Matthew Kenney restaurant drama. So you guys might be familiar with Matthew Kenney, maybe not. He is a very well-known and prolific, I would say, vegan restaurateur. I'll just give a little backstory on my familiarity with him. He has a restaurant. He has a bunch of restaurants in New York, but there was this one called Bar Verde, which is a Mexican restaurant. And I went there back in 2018. And in this area of New York, which is like the Bowery area near East Village, there were 3 of his restaurants in a row. So it was like Bar Verde, Double Zero, which is pizza, and Plant Food and Wine. And so I was like, damn, this guy's really got a presence. Like he's basically got the whole block. He also was the public face behind Plant City in Providence, and I have done a couple videos about Plant City, but you guys might remember from probably back in 2019, I went to Plant City, did a vlog, and in that video, I was like, this place was started by Chef Matthew Kenney, that guy who's like taking over the world. And I like flashed all his different restaurants on the screen of like all the different restaurants opening. And that was indeed how it felt at the time. Like every other week, it was like Matthew Kenney to open new restaurant, Matthew Kenney opening new restaurant. And you're like, holy shit, this guy's taking over everywhere. But something that I have learned, and I feel like I have seen this time and time again, especially, well, I mean, I have seen it unfortunately with certain vegan businesses, but expanding really quickly and like we're just gonna do all this stuff is not always good. It's not always a good sign, and I'd argue it's not always the best for the business. But it turns out that Matthew Kenney is more of a figurehead and doesn't actually own the places. Like for example, Plant City, he was the like celebrity face, the celebrity chef. It was all his types of restaurants. It was all his recipes. And if you guys aren't familiar, Plant City, it's a food hall. So it's a bunch of different restaurants in this one place. But it turns out like Matthew Kenney doesn't own Plant City. Like someone else owns it. And it seems like what he'll do is he kind of provides the like celebrity chef presence and, like I said, the recipes and sort of the creative direction. And then he will partner with people who will deal with like the money and the day-to-day operations. And it seems like that was the case for Plant City. But I'll clarify later. There has been an update from Plant City on this situation. Oh, wait a minute. Did I not put this article? Hang on. Let me put this in the chat. All right. Pinning this. Okay. So this is it. This article was in the New York Times. It was this huge expose on Matthew Kenney. I'll just quickly catch up on chat before I go back. It's a chain of vegan fast food restaurants called The Odd Burger that's been opening locations all over. That sounds good. Vegan grill not using animal products. Host believing. It's the best burgers and fries I've ever had. Sounds delicious. Okay. So with Matthew Kenney, if you guys remember the Bad Vegan docuseries from Netflix from a few years ago, I did a whole video about that docuseries. It was about this restaurant in New York called Pure Food and Wine, which was a raw vegan restaurant in New York that opened in the 2000s, I believe. That was super, super popular, celebrity hotspot. And it was these two people that opened it together, this woman, Sarma, and Matthew Kenney. And then they also had a partner, Jeffrey Chodorow, who provided the financial backing. Sarma and Matthew were dating at the time, and they were this kind of like celebrity chef it couple. And then like basically Matthew left the restaurant because he essentially got kicked out. Like he and Sarma broke up and they made Jeffrey pick which one of them he wanted to work with more, and he picked Sarma. And Jeffrey Chodorow says in Bad Vegan, he says that Matthew was a very talented chef who had a bad financial history. So that was back in like the early 2000s. Matthew already had this reputation. I also, in that video, my Bad Vegan video, I interviewed someone who worked at Plant Food and Wine, who was then in the Bad Vegan docuseries as a talking head. His name is Nick Ross, and I knew him in real life. And so I was like, hey, it's crazy to see you in that docuseries. Would you want to come on for an interview? And something that really stood out to me was that I asked him about Sarma and I asked him about Matthew. He had like nothing but high praise for Sarma. Like he was singing her praises. Like she couldn't be, just everybody loved her. And then when I asked about Matthew, because I was like, oh, I think he has a pretty good reputation in the vegan world, but this documentary did not make it seem like that. And he was kind of like, yeah, I mean, I'll say this. And like, he kind of seemed like he didn't want to say much, but then he like very much said that basically it seemed like everybody hated Matthew and loved Sarma. And like, so yeah, Nick just did not have very nice things to say about Matthew, allegedly. And also, I went to New York like last February or January. I went in for the day, did a vlog, if some of you might remember. And I tried to go to one of Matthew Kenney's restaurants for breakfast. And I was like vlogging. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go, did that. And then I was like, oh man, I just walked right past it. I didn't realize I walked right past it. So then I go back and I see this like boarded up storefront with basically nothing inside and like an eviction notice on the door. And I was like, what? Guess I'm not having breakfast here. And yeah, it's all kind of starting to come together and make sense. So back in January, I saw this article back in January in the Portland Press Herald, although it was originally in the LA Times. This just like popped up in my weekly vegan searches. And I was like, oh, huh, like not really sure what to make of this. And it was the title was From Bad Vegan to Mass Restaurant Closures Inside Matthew Kenney's Crumbling Raw Food Empire. So I read that article and I was like, damn, this doesn't sound good. But didn't really know what to make of it at the time. And the gist was that he was defaulting on rent payments, not paying investors back, not paying employees, things like that. Then this New York Times article came out a couple weeks ago that I have pinned in the chat. Behind a vegan chef's holistic empire, an ugly reality. Matthew Kenney, one of the most famous names in plant-based cuisine, has left a trail of burned investors, bounced paychecks, and graphic text messages. Right off the bat, doesn't sound great. The article starts out talking about the lead server at Plant Food and Wine in Venice Beach, California, who often waited on Mr. Kenney, the restaurant's chef and owner, as he entertained potential investors and on the restaurant's fig tree shaded patio, persuading them to trust him with their money for his ambitious culinary projects. So this is the other thing, and this is something else that Nick mentioned when I interviewed him for the Bad Vegan video. He was saying that Matthew, he was like, yeah, it was kind of weird. Like he started opening these other restaurants with bizarrely similar titles. So basically, or names. He and Sarma had opened Pure Food and Wine together, which obviously then developed this huge, reputation and ton of popularity. And then when Matthew was kicked out, he went ahead and opened Plant Food and Wine. So, and I think had like similar menu items and stuff like that, which is like, I guess I get it. Like if you were one of the people who helped create this menu at this restaurant and then you're kicked out, maybe you would, want to open your own similar, you'd want to try to repeat that success. Let me catch up on chat a little. You're bringing up Bad Vegan makes me think how incestuous the vegan industry is and how that's bad for business. I totally agree, especially with what I just found out about Sage and Cafe Gratitude's connection. I can't even find a McPlant. Well, forget that. In the US, they don't exist. So if you don't believe it, okay. Vegan gorilla, I don't like it. Okay. I think Rick Ross was a flexitarian, maybe a different Rick Ross, IDK. Seems random. Have you met any people you've done stories on in person? Is that a question to me? Like interviews in person? I did one with Tracy from Three Girls Vegan. If you haven't seen that video, I went to Three Girls Vegan, interviewed Tracy, who is the founder, owner of Three Girls Vegan. Vegetarian at least. All right, you guys are having your own chat. Okay, so Also, I want to say, um, Paul's brother, uh, one of Paul's brothers has this nickname for Matthew Kenney, which is Cashew Kenny. He calls him Cashew Kenny because he thinks that he overly relies on cashews in his restaurants, which is kind of true, but like it's vegan, it's a vegan restaurant. Like there's going to be a lot of cashews on the menu, but I just think Cashew Kenny is hilarious. So I will be calling him Cashew from here forward when covering this story. This is great, Marielle. Thanks, Carrie. Should vegans the same cooked area as non-vegans? Listening at work, and you're very entertaining and informative. I'm so happy to hear it. Always here for your workday entertainment, Carrie. Okay, so Plant Food was the flagship restaurant of Matthew Kenney Cuisine, a sprawling health-focused company that until recently operated, managed, or invested in more than 50 restaurants across the globe, from Los Angeles to Sao Paulo to Dubai. So again, very ambitious. You would think like, holy shit, this guy's really got his shit together. He's got 50 restaurants, like thriving restaurants. One of the employees said, I just knew the investors were investing in a lost cause and I couldn't say anything. I would have my check bounced for the fifth pay period in a row, and Matthew Kenney would be presenting to them how amazing Plant Food and Wine is doing. In fact, Plant Food, which just relocated to the Four Seasons Hotel in July, closed in January, the latest of at least 17 restaurants associated with Mr. Kenney that have shuttered since late 2021. This woman interviewed is one of more than 60 former employees, jilted investors, and frustrated business associates who told the New York Times of a 30-year pattern of chaotic and reckless management by Mr. Cashew Kenney, marked by businesses that opened to positive press and then closed, often quickly and amid a flurry of lawsuits, unpaid bills, and bounced paychecks. They said Mr. Kenney has been able to persist despite repeated failures to meet his financial obligations, in part because of his prominent role since the mid-2000s in promoting vegan cooking. Many investors and employees said they were willing to overlook financial warning signs and excuse his past failures because of their devotion to animal rights and mindful nutrition. Mr. Kenney's business woes were no secret. The chef and his companies have been named in dozens of lawsuits in at least 9 states, alleging a variety of misdeeds, including illegal labor practices and stiffing creditors, landlords, and employees. According to public records, Mr. Kenney owes $1.2 million in back taxes in New York State alone. Yet he maintained what appeared to be a glamorous lifestyle, including renting a $20,000 a month house in West Los Angeles, paid for in part by his companies. Other aspects of his conduct seem to be at odds with the holistic, empathetic ethos his brand espouses. He was sued for harassment and discrimination by a Black employee, for instance, and in graphic text messages with a coworker viewed by the Times, he frequently used racist and misogynistic language. And although he became a prominent figure in veganism, championing its virtues to both investors and the public, he conceded to the Times that he had eaten seafood a few times, though he claimed he had to have done so openly and not to have eaten land-based flesh in more than 20 years. So again, we have another vegan restaurateur who's this sort of vegan food figurehead who is potentially not practicing what they preach or what they purvey. In addition, employees felt pressure to run interference for Mr. Kenney's romantic relationships, including 2 with young women who worked for him. We were all specifically told not to tell the women he brought in that he had a girlfriend, and we also knew that when the girlfriend would come, not to mention the dates he would bring to the restaurant. So kind of just like sleazeball behavior. Nothing like illegal per se, but ethically a little dicey. A longtime restaurant veteran said, checks bounced all the time. Nobody that I know that has ever dealt with Matthew has ever gotten away clean. Through it all, Mr. Kenney has continued to win over new investors. Cindy Landon, an actress, producer, and widow of the Hollywood star Michael Landon, said she decided to become an investor in plant food and wine when it opened in 2015, despite being warned by her business manager and others that Mr. Kenney shouldn't be trusted because of his previous failed business ventures. He's charming, he's bright, he's passionate, Ms. Landon said. I thought, you know what? I'm going to move forward on this. She's among several people who told the Times they had invested in Mr. Kenney's businesses in recent years and felt he took advantage of their commitment to veganism. They said Mr. Kenney provided unreliable financial data about their investments, if any at all, and that they now assume their money is gone. In the world of veganism and animal rights, there are a lot of extremely wealthy people, said Richard Weintraub, a prominent Los Angeles-based real estate developer and an investor in plant food. We really want to trust and we really want to believe that these people have the same interests at heart. I need a water break. Alarming to hear how many businesses he was attached to. No. This is classic overspreading. Exactly. In capitalism, this sort of behavior is incentivized. I agree. Absolutely. Extropian Tranchman. Hey, welcome to the stream. I can't stand those who invest in those who did something wrong and never did anything to remedy it. Yeah, I mean, I have to say I feel more I don't it's harder to feel bad for those like super rich people who invested some of their very large amount of money into something and maybe lost that money. Who I really feel bad for are employees who would live month to month on their restaurant earnings and maybe even be taking care of their family with that money and not getting paid. It's just that is very heartbreaking to me. Mr. Kenney seems problematic in myriad ways. Why do people still find him credible? Yeah, he's managed to maintain this like public sheen somehow. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll be able to do that for much longer. Someone loves their fast food. A fungi who likes turtles. Okay, it took me a minute to read that. Okay, let's get back to the story. Mr. Kenney painted a rosy economic picture of his businesses in a March 2022 email to an investor that was viewed by the Times. We hope to be generating more than $100 million system-wide this year and $250 next year, he wrote, adding that his company was valued between $50 and $100 million. 6 months later, New York State auctioned off the contents of his Manhattan restaurant Sestina for unpaid taxes. However, even people who have been wronged by Kenney still sing his praises, with one of his former partners calling him a visionary and a genius. But he also said the chef had no entrepreneurial skills, and he is suing Mr. Kenney and two of his businesses, alleging fraud and seeking damages of more than $25 million. Paychecks were constantly bouncing, and his director of hospitality would say, "We're just waiting for more money from investors and then it will be fine," which obviously was not fine. Money was constantly being moved around, and this same director of hospitality allegedly used to say, "We have to rob Peter to pay Paul." So it's just a mess. Like these person's paychecks are being paid from this investment for this new restaurant in Dubai. Matthew Kenney apparently also claimed he was a victim of embezzlement by executives within his company and that he had reported the matter to the FBI. Executives and employees also said Cashew was constantly using company money for personal things, including tens of thousands of dollars of dental work. I just had to include that part because it's just so wild. A Black former executive claimed he was discriminated against because of a speech impediment and his race, was subjected to use of the N-word, and he also claims there was a harassing work environment permeated with racist terms for Asian business partners and Jewish employees. The Times obtained text messages from Matthew that seemed to confirm all of this attitude and language. I don't want to minimize all the harmful things he said, but I also don't really want to read them out loud. But I will say, he didn't seem to discriminate in his discrimination. He discriminated openly and freely against many different groups. He also made some really gross and misogynistic comments about women. Also had a habit of dating people who worked for him and also dating people quite a bit younger than him. Um, as the pandemic brought mass closings and chaos to the restaurant industry, Mr. Kenney's company continued to expand. It was really, really aggressive growth without a plan in place, a former employee said. The article then goes into example after example of employees not being paid, restaurants being shut down unceremoniously for things like unpaid taxes and rent. One of these restaurants was Plant Pub at Fenway Park in Boston, which is crazy because I remember hearing about Plant Pub and being like, oh, that's so cool. There's this vegan pub next to Fenway Park. And some of my relatives that live in the Boston area and are big Red Sox fans were like, oh, we went to this place, and they're not, vegan curious at all. And so I thought it was really cool that they went there, and I was like, oh my God, that sounds awesome. And I was in Boston one night, ordered from Plant Pub. I had no idea that it was a Matthew Kenney restaurant, and unfortunately it is now closed down. So it's just this all of these missed opportunities or wasted potential for things that could have been cool, and then unfortunately just were mismanaged seemingly. And yeah, let me catch up a little. Matthew Kenney, sad. Violates rights of others. Okay. So everything happening was just a giant shit show, and then the pandemic is also happening alongside all of this. You have all of these people from vulnerable communities not getting paid in the middle of a global pandemic, and Matthew Kenney is living a very glamorous life, said Greta Herron, a sous chef at Sestina in New York, which closed in 2022 after the state seized the property for non-payment of taxes. It was insane, she says. Mr. Kenney's struggles have not kept him from starting new ventures. He still holds an interest in a 00 location that opened in New York in Times Square last month. In February, a Canadian company announced a partnership with Mr. Kenney to help develop recipes for its plant-based seafood. For Cindy Landon, who stood by Mr. Kenney for years, the decision to speak out came only after hearing from so many investors and employees who had, like her, been burned by him. They all tell me these stories, she says, and they tell me this man needs to be stopped. So that is how the article ends, and it is just, just a shit show. There's no really resolution to this all, I guess, but I think having this information out there is helpful. I also want to mention Plant City's response to this. So the Plant City in Providence, they made this post on Instagram. While celebrating Earth Week and our upcoming 5th anniversary, we want to thank all of our team and supporters and remind all of our reason for being. We are 100% locally female owned and have been for over 2.5 years. So that I took to be them stating that they are no longer associated with Matthew Kenney. They have separated from him. They have parted ways, I guess, is what I take from that. We exist to share sustainable and compassionate food and the message of supporting the health and wellness of the planet and all beings on it. We fully run on renewable energy, wind and sun, and purchase all of our single-use items in compostable versions. We endeavor to practice radical kindness in all we do. We are wholly against any actions or words against anyone and would stand up against it vigorously. Note, Kim Anderson, our owner, has never taken a penny from Plant City. Any profits have been used to scale other locations and donated to many local and global nonprofits working to support climate crisis, sustainability efforts, and animal ethics. So this was sort of Plant City's way of like very strongly distancing themselves from Matthew. Um, sorry, from Cashew, and saying we're not associated with him anymore. And also, just a side note that our owner does not take money and get tens and tens of thousands of dollars worth of dental work done. So I thought that was interesting, that they took their time to respond to that, or they took the opportunity to do that. So with Matthew Kenney, it's like he obviously has a lot of talent as a chef, and in many ways deserves success and accolades for his vegan cooking. But this has, clearly this has been an issue for the past 3 decades. Like, how has he not figured this out yet? How has he not partnered? I'm sure that there's someone he could partner up with who would help him with the business side of things, who would give him some advice. So I just have to wonder, like, is it his ego that's getting in the way of like, no, I know best for my business, and he doesn't want to give someone else the control in the business sense? So yeah, it's just this bizarre mix of like having like this constant meteoric success, yet constantly burning bridges. And I guess because the food is so good, like he's just able to continue convincing people to believe in him. And it's too bad, like I don't know. I think there should be more and more vegan restaurants, not less. And seeing them being, mismanaged and burning people like employees and investors, it just doesn't, just another icky story. Just another icky one, guys. Um okay. God, what a mess. I think it would be best if Kenny's name became mud and any restos attached to him that are still profitable go their own way and get investors directly if necessary. Yeah, totally. Like what it seems like Plant City did. And yeah, so that's that story, guys. And I have one more story. This was sent to me by a subscriber named Steven. Not sure if you're here, Steven, but Steven sent this one to me. I thought it was interesting. Let me add it to the chat. Someone's like playing jazz trumpet out somewhere in our neighborhood, and it is just so pleasant. Just like some soothing jazz notes in the distance. I don't know if you can hear that, Paul, but I'm enjoying it. Howdy from Japan. Hey, Stuart, welcome. Glad you joined. We're about to go into our last story, but there's lots for you to catch up on later, should you choose. Okay, our final story. Eva Marie, former WWE star Eva Marie, credits PETA for turning her toward hunting. So this is someone who was a WWE star. I'm not super familiar with WWE, but there was a show on quite a few years back called Total Divas. And it was like Eva Marie and the Bella Twins and a few other WWE divas. And I did watch the show and I enjoyed the show. So I am familiar with Eva Marie. LOL. I'd love to have my own jazz soundtrack. It's really nice. We also have a bagpipe. We have a bagpipe player who's often like practicing like the bagpipe song, the one and only bagpipe song that ever gets played. And that's also pretty pleasant too. LOL jazz trumpet in the hood. Okay. I don't know about bagpipes. It's kind of nice, it either sounds like a wedding or a funeral. It's like something's happening, it's like that's what I think when I hear bagpipes, because something's happening. It's either really good or it's really bad, but like, we can meet in the middle. Okay. So this former WWE star gave an interview, and she said in the interview, "Shout out to PETA because you guys made me a hunter. Thank you very much, because they did all the hard work by showcasing factory farming. So now I'm going to hunt my own meat. You should know where your meat comes from. Hunting makes you appreciate food a lot more, and we make sure we have zero waste from the wild game we take." She said, "When you go out there and you actually see this beautiful, majestic animal, it is mind blowing." So this is an interesting story, right? Because she's like, PETA helped me see that factory farming is wrong, and now I shoot animals in the head myself. And PETA's like, well, no, that's not really. But it is kind of interesting because it's like, it is rare for someone to, make that connection and be like, oh, factory farming bad, and like understanding where your food comes from, and like understanding what it takes to get meat on your plate is certainly something that I think a lot more people could have, instead of just like living in denial, living in ignorance, just like buying like a clean little package of meat at the grocery store. So this is a weird story because it's not really a huge controversy. It's just interesting that she's crediting PETA for helping her kill animals in a different way. So I don't know what you guys think about that. Brigadoon, Brigadoon. Is that a bagpipe song, Tamara? Or are there bagpipes in Brigadoon? I'm not familiar with it. Bad memories with bagpipe guy. I'm very sorry. That is so random and specific, Navia, but I'm sorry for your bad bagpipe memories. There's something about bagpipe music that makes you happily march into battle, into certain death. Exactly. You're just kind of like, okay, yeah, like there's a spirit behind it. Maybe too many blows to the head during her wrestling career. Oh no. If you had to eat animals, wouldn't it be a larger animal that is able to stay alive if you take part of its body because it is so big? I don't know if that's what this type of hunting is referring to. Um, Seems safer than going with anything else. If I had to, hypothetically, you'd never need to not be vegan. Um, I agree. This is hypothetical. I have thoughts. Oh, it's a great musical, Mariel, that takes place in Scotland. Maybe I should watch it. You should. I like musicals. Yeah, so that was just kind of an interesting story. I had an unfortunate experience last weekend. I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw this person that I'm Facebook friends with. Like, I don't know if you guys have this, but like sometimes I'll have someone that I'm Facebook friends with because I like hung out with them once in college. And I'm like, why like 14 years later am I seeing a picture of your baby? You know what I mean? Like I think that I would be in favor, or I would be it would behoove me to do a Facebook friend cleanse. Not that I even go on Facebook that much, but I did. And this guy that I like I said, hung out with maybe one time in college, it was like a friend of a friend who was visiting for the weekend, posted like a series of photos with a video of him killing a wild turkey, shooting it, and it was so disturbing and it was so upsetting, and he was just like, oh, it was so majestic, it was just so, wow, what an experience, and it just so deeply disturbed me. um like literally seeing this turkey die on this guy's fucking like curated Facebook post. And I looked at the comments, and like this guy's, I was going to say something mean, but he's from like somewhere in Virginia. And I think maybe a lot of the people, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Virginia, but it seems like maybe he comes from a more like hunting culture, and that maybe a lot of his friends and acquaintances are of the same culture. And so people were commenting and being like, wow, like, holy shit, man, like good job, things like that. And I was just like I was just looking for that one comment, just that one comment that was like, this is really fucked up. Like, how are you bragging about this? But there wasn't one. And so I like immediately unfriended him. It was just like knee-jerk reaction, just unfriended. And then after I did that, I was like, maybe I should have written a comment first. Like maybe I should have commented and been like, this is really upsetting to see. This is so unnecessary. Like just um something to hopefully provoke some thought in others. But it was too late at that point because I had already unfriended. So yeah, it was like really rattled me. Like it was just very jarring to see. And yeah, I'm not going to be like celebrating anyone hunting. I mean, obviously, I don't agree with factory farming. I think it's horrible. Um, but something about like seeing this animal just going about their lives in the wild and then being just their life taken from them like that is very upsetting to see, disturbing to see. A few of you saying this is why I'm not on Facebook. Yeah, I think that's so wise. And yeah, you're just kind of like, what good is this doing? Melissa, hi Melissa. Melissa said that's infuriating. Majestic murder is an oxymoron. Oh my God, such a good point. That's exactly like a majestic murder. That's what they're trying to make it out to be. What we cannot eat feathers or hair. He's a southern bumpkin. Yes, I was going to put it in like a less nice way, but yes, yes, he is. I have often said that I do not understand a person who looks at a beautiful wild animal and responds by wanting to kill him or her. I agree, and it seems to be like such a cultural like, well, my dad took me hunting, and it's just like I don't give a fuck. You find something else to do with your dad or to do with your son, and like there's people who do like bird watching or wildlife photography or certain things where you still get a thrill of trying to spot an animal or catch an animal in some way where you don't have to be like so brutally destructive. I would also have unfriended, Melissa said. Um, Hunting is way worse than the carnies try to make it. Yeah, it gets so like humane washed. Um, they try to romanticize it. Yeah, totally. Um, yeah, so that's really it, guys. That's all of my topics and controversies. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Um, yeah, it was fun having a place where we could chat, and I felt like these topics all like smushed together in a video like wouldn't necessarily work super well, but I thought discussing them live would be fun and interesting, and it definitely was. I don't love that these controversies are happening. I would like a world in which there's less vegan controversies, but like I said, I think they're important to talk about. Um, a lot of them, especially in cases where seemingly like bad behavior tends to get like covered up or suppressed. I think we should talk about it. And yeah, this is sort of the antidote to good vegan news, controversial vegan happenings. This was a great conversation. Glad you thought so. Great job, Marielle. Thanks, Carrie. This was good. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Found it really interesting. Chantal, they are majestic morons. Perfect. This was fun. I love your videos. Rock on. Thanks, Melissa. Good live. Thanks for chilling, Marielle and fellow vegans. Keep up the good work. Enjoyed this live stream. It gave me much to think about in regard to what businesses I should support. Such a good one. Such a good point, Tamara. Thanks, Marielle. Bye, everyone. Kind of should think more about the articles you brought up here. Too difficult to think on the fly about them to know what to say. Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to be, I'll post all the article links in the description, and I'll also do time codes for people who are watching later, because it's a lot to get through. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. And just a reminder for people who joined late, I launched Patreon last week. You can find the link in the description, the description box on my channel. When you go to my channel, it'll be right there. I share exclusive content and we do weekly Discord chat. So just another place for us to connect and for people to support my channel. But I so appreciate you guys watching and chatting in the stream and subscribing and liking and just being generally supportive. And yeah, appreciate you guys. Natalie said, thanks. Cool. Awesome live stream. Thanks, Paul. All right, guys, that's it for today. And I will chat with you guys again soon. Bye.